Urgent! A horrific terrorist attack in the center of Moscow. A loud explosion rocked the heart of Russia. Is this a hunt for security officials? Budanov makes a sharp statement. He knows what Putin really wants. Shock! Are Britain and France transferring nuclear weapons to Ukraine? Deadly missile could strike the Kremlin directly. Meanwhile, Belarus is shaken. Explosive special operations leave Lukashenko with no chance to support his fellow dictator. The temperature is rising. Let's break down what's happening right now. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. Maria Farafonova here with the latest updates. An explosion shook central Moscow. Police officers were targeted. On the night of February 24th, an explosion occurred north of central Moscow on Sushevsky Val near the patrol traffic police vehicle. Local telegram channels report that an unidentified individual approached the patrol car and detonated an improvised explosive device. Both the attacker and one police officer, senior lieutenant of the Interior Ministry Denis Bratushenko, were killed. The blast wave reportedly threw the officer's body into a nearby transformer booth. One of his partners is said to be in critical condition in the hospital, and another officer was also injured and hospitalized. Other witnesses claimed that the suspected attacker was filming video at the scene before moving aside. Footage from surveillance cameras showing the aftermath of the incident is circulating online, with notes that the search for those responsible is ongoing. Russia's Interior Ministry has announced the opening of criminal cases under articles related to encroachment on the life of a law enforcement officer and the illegal use of explosive devices. We are approaching the moment when final decisions must be made to continue this war or move toward peace. New statements by Budanov once again present the hard truth. According to Budanov, peace without accountability for the aggressor would only be a pause in hostilities and a signal to other authoritarian regimes that aggression can go unpunished.
Such wars do not end on their own. They either conclude with a just decision, or they inevitably return in an even larger and more dangerous form.
Kyrylo Budanov explains that Russia's war against Ukraine has three key aspects.
First, Moscow is testing the global order and the viability of international institutions by violating the UN Charter and international agreements. Second, this is an existential war. Russia has been waging it against Ukraine for a long time because an independent Ukraine puts an end to the Kremlin's imperial plans. Third, Putin views Ukraine as a pathway to restoring spheres of influence of the former USSR in Europe, Asia, Africa, and even on the American continent. But Ukraine has stood in the way of these plans.
Budanov emphasized that thanks to diplomatic efforts and the support of partners, primarily the United States, Ukraine is step by step moving closer to results. He expressed hope that justice will prevail. Will Britain and France transfer nuclear weapons to Ukraine? This is what Russian propagandists are claiming and presenting as their biggest fear. They argue that a deadly bomb could then be launched directly at them.
Britain and France are preparing to arm Ukraine with a nuclear bomb, the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service reported. The British and French want to disguise the transfer of nuclear weapons to Kyiv as Ukraine's own development.
Nuclear weapons have not been transferred to Ukraine yet, but relaxing would not be advisable for Russia. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom and France are ready to send contingents of up to 10,000 soldiers to Ukraine. This was stated by President Volodymyr Zelensky.
There are different types of brigades, and in our understanding, up to 5,000 troops constitute one brigade. When we signed our declaration with all participants of the Coalition of the Willing, we understood that these two countries are already ready to provide one brigade each.
He noted that there are signals from several other states that are also prepared to allocate contingents for deployment to Ukraine. The exact location of these units remains unknown, though Zelensky said he would prefer to see him closer to the front line.
So conditionally speaking, Poland has not confirmed its presence. But if Poland, for example, proposed its presence in Lviv, we would not need that. That is not how we work. It would be better if Poland then had the opportunity to provide its logistics for aircraft and for air defense.
Earlier, former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson stated that the United Kingdom should immediately send troops to Ukraine.
I see no logical reason why we should not send peaceful ground troops there to demonstrate our support, our constitutional support for a free and independent Ukraine. This is a political question. It is about whether Ukraine is a free country or not. If it is a vassal state of Russia, which is what Putin wants, then obviously Putin decides who comes into his country. If not, then Ukrainians should decide.
Meanwhile, UK Defence Secretary John Healey stated that he would like to be the first defence minister to send British troops to Ukraine. He stressed that there is no greater responsibility for a defence minister than deciding on the use of armed forces, adding that a secure Europe requires a strong and sovereign Ukraine. Zelensky hinted at operations in Belarus, specifically operations aimed at destroying towers used to guide Shahed drones. The president announced this on his Telegram channel.
Now, the repeaters of modern Shahed drones are a new technique that has appeared on the territory of Belarus and helps to hit our people and energy sector. Because it is thanks to these repeaters that the adjustment is taking place. We did everything so that there were 3 or 4 less of them.
He also noted that this was done because Russia was using jet drones and not only through Belarus.
We had to do this because Russia used jet drones, but not only through Belarus. They went not only through their territory, they went with technological support, which is carried out from the territory of Belarus.
Zelensky also pointed to the importance of strengthening sanctions against Lukashenko, stating that he supports the war and helps to kill civilians.
We have evidence of this. Everything is on the maps, videos, everything is recorded. How Shaheds entered from the territory of Belarus thanks to repeaters. And after that, strikes were carried out against us and there were civilian casualties. For us, this is a crime.
Putin is not going to end the war, and therefore Western countries should stop him rather than try to appease him, Volodymyr Zelensky said in an interview with the BBC. Meanwhile, Putin himself does not hide his expansionist plans and call on Russians for total militarization. The latest statements from the leaders of Ukraine and Russia coming up next.
In the coming weeks, they may meet face-to-face. Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin are preparing to sit down at the negotiating table together.
We have reduced everything to a single issue and we have discussed various ways to resolve it, which means it is solvable. So if both sides want to solve this problem, we will solve it.
But the special envoy of the US President Steve Witkoff is clearly being disingenuous about the goals and problems. Each side in the negotiations has far more at stake, and when it comes to the issue of a ceasefire, Kyiv and Moscow are approaching it from completely opposite sides. As for Volodymyr Zelensky, he outlined his vision for ending the hostilities in a major interview with the BBC that was released the day before.
Today, stopping Putin and not allowing him to occupy Ukraine, that is a victory for peace.
According to the Ukrainian leader, Putin will never voluntarily agree to a complete ceasefire. For the bunker dweller, a ceasefire is a forced measure, since the occupier's army has exhausted all its resources and could collapse at any moment. I
believe that Putin needs this pause. He needs this pause as well. That's true. No matter what he says, that's true. And when he recovers, our European partners say it will take 3 to 5 years. In my opinion, he will be able to recover in a couple of years, no more. So where he will go next, we don't know. But the fact that he will want to continue...
Putin himself does not really hide his plans to continue the so-called special military operation. Even though the bunker dweller doesn't give interviews, he does occasionally appear in front of the cameras. And at every opportunity, he reminds Russians that the war will be long, exhausting, and increasingly bloody.
You know, when everything is calm, measured, and stable here, we get bored. Stagnation. We want some action. But as soon as the action starts, everyone freaks out. In seconds and bullets. Unfortunately, bullets are whistling now. So we're scared. It's terrifying, just terrifying. Well, it's awful. And
Putin doesn't even hide the fact that he's doing everything to make this horror settle in every Russian family. We
do not consider ourselves responsible for the deaths of people because we didn't start this war.
Instead of focusing on peaceful negotiations, the Kremlin is pouring all state resources into the military-industrial complex.
The stable and rhythmic operation of the defense industry organization, including the fulfillment of the export contracts, became possible largely thanks to the timely measures of state support.
And while Donald Trump is fantasizing about yet another peace agreement with Russia until the summer of 2026, Moscow is actively recruiting new allies.
New opportunities are opening up for deepening military technical cooperation with countries from other regions of the world, including states on the African continent.
In the poorest African countries, Putin is counting on massively recruiting cannon fodder in the future to continue the war.
According to the plan for 2026, which we will finalize and approve today, the volume of military exports should increase significantly.
All of this indicates that the Kremlin is not just preparing for World War III. Putin has already started it. I
believe that Putin has already started it. The question is how much territory he can seize. And the question is how to stop him. Not so that Russia doesn't win. Russia wants to bring its own version of peace and change people's lives to something it likes.
The Russian dictator is pushing the same message openly from the podium to the masses, only in different packaging. Supposedly, enemies are everywhere, imposing on Russians a way of life foreign to them, with centralized water supply and indoor toilets, and also gas heating, electricity, and democracy.
Their unification was based on completely different principles. They were united by the desire for profit, the desire to take something from us, to conquer, destroy, and seize. And we were united by aspiration. To preserve everything, our common land, our families, our culture, our traditions.
How Putin and his generals preserve land, culture, and traditions is clearly visible in the example of Ukrainian cities wiped off the face of the earth by Russian liberators.
This is very important, this is good, and it needs to be supported.
It turns out that while Volodymyr Zelensky is doing everything he can to achieve real peace, Putin and his generals are doing everything possible just to keep the war going. That is why Western countries should firmly suppress the Kremlin's desires rather than trying to appease the bunker dweller.
Russia is losing Iran. Putin's ally is overwhelmed with its own problems, and Tehran now has little capacity to assist Russia in the war against Ukraine. The United States is reportedly on the verge of action, preparing for possible strikes, while internal unrest is unfolding inside Iran. All the details in our report.
48 hours. That's exactly how much time Iran has left to prevent a major war. According to American sources, Washington is waiting for Tehran to present a detailed proposal for a new nuclear deal. If the document is submitted as early as Friday, another round of negotiations may take place in Geneva.
This is likely the last chance that US President Donald Trump will give Iran before launching a large-scale American-Israeli military operation, which could be directly targeted against the country's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Axios, citing sources.
At the same time, Washington does not rule out an interim option. According to American officials, the parties may discuss a temporary agreement, a kind of pause that would allow restrictions to be fixed until a full-fledged nuclear deal is reached.
The past years have shown that reaching a meaningful agreement with Iran is not easy. It is not easy. We must reach a meaningful agreement, otherwise bad things will happen. Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. It's very simple.
But even within this formula, there is room for maneuver. Donald Trump's circle allows for so-called symbolic enrichment, a minimal level that would be completely transparent for international monitoring and would not involve a single technological step toward creating nuclear weapons.
The main strategy of the Iranians is to stall for time.
But there is one small problem here: the economy. And right now, it is in a very dire state.
At the present moment, Iranian banks, operating within the country, which are in various significant ways extremely important for providing essential financing for both the army and the military corps, are currently not just in a precarious state of pre-default, but are actually in a state of total default. And so, as a direct consequence of this, the deadlines and timelines set by Trump are encouraging and accelerating a significant outflow of capital.
But it seems the jokes are over. While the Iranians are trying to buy time across the ocean, the situation is gaining momentum. Since January, the United States has been deploying additional forces to the Middle East. At first, under the pretext of supporting protesters in Iran, and now as a lever of pressure in negotiations. Hundreds of planes, aircraft carriers, munitions, and systems, air defense systems, but they have already been deployed at bases in Qatar and Bahrain, Moreover, along with the Abraham Lincoln Carrier Group, Trump has sent a strike group led by the aircraft carrier Gerald Ford.
The cost of starting a war for the Americans would be many times higher than the cost of maintaining the presence of the American fleet and American aircraft in the Middle East. And until the Americans are 100% sure that the outcome will be positive, they will not start a war. So right now, the key objective is to wear down the Iranians. And
it is not only the Americans who are wearing down the terrorist government of Iran, but also the ongoing protests. And no matter how hard Ali Khamenei tries to suppress the rebellious, the people of Iran are once again taking to the streets in protest. For the first time since the harsh crackdown on the mass demonstrations in January, students have come out onto the streets, showing that fear has not yet prevailed. Hundreds of protesters chanted, "Death to the dictator."
The sense of hopelessness in Iranian society today is something we haven't seen before. I mean, this feeling of anger has been deepening over many years. And now we are at a record new level of how dissatisfied Iranian society is with its situation, both in the context of foreign relations, prospects of new rounds of conflict with Israel and the US, as well as the impact of sanctions and so on. Another thing, previously Tehran was the heart of political protest in Iran. It still obviously remains the capital. What happens there matters. But now protesters are taking to the streets, even in small towns across the country. And
while tensions are rising in Iran, their enigmatic friend Great Russia prefers to stay on the sidelines. Instead of supporting its ally, Moscow holds exercises, buys weapons, and generally acts solely in its own interest, disregarding Iran's fate. As for what awaits the country next, peace or a major war, only time will tell.
Exactly 4 years ago, Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. What has Putin managed to achieve in that time after sending 1,260,000 of his compatriots to death or injury? Let's take a look.
2 or 3 weeks and it was all supposed to be over. As a result, today is February 24th, 2026, exactly 4 years since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Kremlin occupation forces.
I have made the official decision to proceed with a special military operation immediately.
This war has become the bloodiest and most destructive in the history of Russia and Ukraine since the end of World War II. In 4 years, the Russian Federation has lost more people than in all the wars and conflicts throughout the existence of the aggressor country combined. And with each passing year, the number of Russians killed and maimed in Ukraine only increases, while the territories seized by the Kremlin are incomparably small compared to the losses in manpower. Despite the fact that in 2025 they managed to mobilize and conscript 406,000 people into military service, their total losses, including those killed and wounded, amounted to about 418,000 soldiers. The year 2025 became the first during the entire war when the losses of the Russian army exceeded the number of new recruits. Losses are increasing while the amount of captured territory is only decreasing. Throughout the entire past year, the Kremlin captured less than 1% of Ukraine's territory, and in just the incomplete month of February 2026, the Ukrainian armed forces have already reclaimed.
Things are not going so smoothly for the Russians. They are facing serious resistance from the armed forces of Ukraine and are even encountering situations where the Ukrainian armed forces, in turn, are launching offensive operations.
Since February 2022, Russia has managed to inflict serious damage on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. This winter has been the coldest and darkest for Ukrainians, but it did not break them. In turn, Ukraine also carried out massive retaliatory strikes on Russian energy facilities. From the border regions of Belgorod all the way to Smolensk. Many Russians also experienced firsthand exactly what these widespread blackouts are like.
Wait, oh no, are we being bombed? It really looks like we're being bombed right now.
I don't know.
Just last year, at least 25 out of 38 of Russia's largest energy facilities were damaged by Ukrainian drones. In addition, the cold winter revealed that Russia's public utilities are in terrible condition, with all the money going to the war instead of repairs.
There is a monstrous underinvestment in public utilities, and we have a monstrous underinvestment in all energy sectors. That is, from time to time, when accidents occur in some settlements, it suddenly turns out that there is, for example, a heating plant that hasn't been repaired since Soviet times or something else like that.
To repair the public utilities sector, about 10 trillion rubles need to be invested in Russian infrastructure. That is exactly how much the Kremlin spent on financing the war in Ukraine in 2025. Russians have also started to feel that they are the ones paying for the war in Ukraine, as prices in Russia have begun to skyrocket.
Well, friends, how are we starting the new year 2026? That's right, So, my husband went to the store. How much do you think all of this cost? 3,000, three grand.
Have you even seen this? Now, even in August, chocolate comes in these cases because the prices have just shot up to the sky, already 139 rubles. People are being forced to steal.
At the end of September last year, the Russian finance minister Silvanov explained the increase of a VAT from 20 to 22% as a measure to fight inflation. But after the new VAT was introduced, he stated directly, all Russians must pay for the war in Ukraine.
We need additional spending on defense and security. Today, this is the primary task of our country. And in order to provide the necessary resources, yes, we are also changing the value-added tax.
It will take at least 2 or 3 years to make up for those lost years when all resources were simply pulled out of the civilian sector. Once again, people don't buy tanks, people don't buy missiles, but that's exactly what's being produced. Naturally, prices are rising for things that are not being produced.
International sanctions and the ban on the sale of hydrocarbons, strikes on the oil refining industry, budget deficits, rising prices, colossal losses among the male population, as well as an increase in banditry from the so-called returning heroes of the special military operation. This is far from a complete list of problems that Russia has faced after attacking Ukraine. In response, starting from 2014, Russia occupied less than 20% of Ukraine's territory, becoming a global pariah.
That's all for now. Stay with us to be the first to know what's happening right now. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon.